Hello, this is John W7DBO with the Field Radio podcast. In this YouTube episode, we are going to be covering the completed project of our VHF UHF GoBox, and then also putting the project into the field. If you followed our other episodes, we've gone through the build process, the design, the mission, and the configuring of the boxes. So this is going to be a wrap-up episode showing what we put in the field and what our evaluation is. As you can see here, this is the setup for the Ketchikan 100K Ultra Run that happens every August here in Utah. And this event, along with the Squaw Peak 50, is the events that I support annually. Backcountry, you're about 15 minutes away from cell phone service. So the amateur radio operators are an integral part of the aid station in providing not only communications back to the race director, but also tracking of runners through the station so we know where they were last seen in the backcountry, and also any emergency communications or medical support. So the other event that I put this box into use was the solar eclipse that happened in August here across the United States. And I was able to set up the station where we were at to view the totality of the eclipse and to monitor local communications in the area. So walking through the final components of the box, this system is actually split up into two boxes as previously discussed. There is a radio box and then a control head box. This adds the ability to be able to minimize the space needed on the desk and put the equipment that needs to be within the sight of the operator on the desk, and then put the rest of the equipment in a separate box below the desk. So starting from top left here, you'll see we have a UHF connector. Now this connector is what goes to the antenna. So the routing of this goes from the radio to the SWR meter and then over to this output. Next we have a double pull, double throw switch. This puts the power to the box either selecting from the internal battery, which is a Biono Power 12 amp hour LiFePO 4 battery, or an external power source through the power pull port. Then below the switch, you can see that's where our external power would come in. And then also the blue and black power pull is what the color configuration I use to note that this is a line going directly to the blue Biono Power battery. And that is a non-fuse connection for charging. So that's why I changed the color so I don't accidentally power something from that port. Below the external power and the charge power ports, I have two power pull plugs for external items that need power. Moving to the next panel, this is the center panel. At the top, you see two USB ports. One is for the signal link input, and the other one is for the PC connection on the radio, so I can program the radio. Below that is two surface-mounted fuses. This allows for quick replacement of the fuses on the panel. Next, I have USB power, the signal link USB that fits in there and can slide out for configuration, and then also another USB power. Now, although the Kenwood D710G does have a built-in TNC and Echolink capability and WinLink capability, if you're running FL Digi, it does not have a sound card, so you still need to use a signal link, and that's why this is in this box. Now, above the signal link is what I consider the patch panel. These are the items that are being sent from this box through the snake, as you can see. There's power to power up the box. There's A and B audio. And there's also the Cat5 microphone control. Looking over on the right panel, I have a DROC power meter that tracks the power consumption and use of the battery. Below that is two 12-volt socket connectors. Then below the 12-volt socket connectors is my SWR meter. I find it very important, especially with field portable antenna setups, to be able to confirm your SWR meter after setup or during setup. I have found events where I've used a known good antenna and a known good cable However, the way I set it up provided a bad SWR, and I wasn't able to discover that until I realized that other people weren't able to hear me, and then I started backtracing. So because of that, I find it very convenient to have a built-in SWR meter anytime you are using unknown conditions or you're using new setups, you don't know what's reacting to your antenna. So this is a good thing to have with field portable operations. Now looking into the control head box, this is what sits on the table. At the top left and right, I have USB connections. Now this could be used to power any USB device needing power, say charging your cell phone, but I've put them at the top in that position for USB lights, as you can see here. On the left is the patch panel, where those same cables from the radio box are coming now into this box, with the addition of a push-to-talk foot switch, hand switch plug for the MFJ microphone radio switch, and an auxiliary input. Over on the right is a voltmeter, so the voltmeter will stay in view of the operator, and another USB power port to power items such as cell phones. The radio control head is in the center with its own cable running to the radio. Then below that, like I said, is the MFJ microphone radio switch. I prefer this switch because I'm able to switch between, say, a headset and a tabletop or handheld. And I'm also able to control headphones and turning on and off the speakers. So you can have headphones and speakers on at the same time. One thing I found important with the radio control head is you want to be able to even remove that from this box. When you're trying to configure it, it's a lot more comfortable if you can just grab a hold of the control head and hold it in your hand to fix it or to move it around as needed. So I 3D printed a bracket that goes on top of the MFJ selector switch. And as you can see here, the supplied base mount for that radio control head can slide in and stow in this position. Once that radio control head is out, in the back there is 2 power pole connections and a 12-volt connection for any additional tabletop power needs, and then also 2 speakers for the A channel and B channel. On the lid, I put 2 paper clips to be able to hold notes as needed at the event, and also an MFJ clock. Now, as you can see, I went with a deeper box. Most of my boxes are not this deep, but I went with the extra deep box from MTM Cases, specifically so I could still utilize the tray that they provide with it. So before packing up, you can see I have my manual, my fuses, any extra documentation. I'm able to lay that on top of the box, and then I'm able to put the tray in the box. And this tray holds my radio control head, my patch panel, my USB cables, and any additional cabling in this tray. A feature of the MTM case has a inside the lid compartment area also. And so for now, I've just started putting items in there such as the USB lights, specific cables to my radio. As shown earlier in the video, this is the setup for the Ketchikan 100K run. I have the control head on the table with a tough book using for data logging and transmitting over FLDigi, the runner times entering the aid station and leaving the aid station. I have an MFJ tabletop mic that I prefer to use with this, especially at events. It's a lot easier using a tabletop mic. And then, of course, I have my runner notes and, the most important thing, staying hydrated with some Powerade. At this event, we decided to try and do some INVIS transmission of FLDigi over HF 40 meter. So I brought out my ICOM 7200, and that just was able to set right on top of the other box with its tuner. And we weren't able to successfully make communications with using that method. So we eventually went back to just transmitting over VHF. In the bottom right of the screen, as you can see here, my radio box is sitting up on a crate. This is what I prefer to do for any boxes that intend to sit on the ground, is to just use a crate. The crate can be good for handling cables or any different accessories you have, and then when you're there setting up, put your radio box up on the crate. This helps. This is not too dusty of a location, but a lot of times you get your boxes sitting on the ground and people come up and they don't realize that they're kicking dirt or dust into your boxes. And this also shortens your cable runs needed going from your radio box up to your table, to your microphones. And also I find that if I have extra coaxial cable going to my antenna, I can easily stuff it inside the upside down crate, and it keeps it from becoming a tripping point. Now, I knew in the design that the 12 amp hour LiFePO4 battery would not be a battery that could sustain itself in a full day event operating full power plus laptop. And so for this event, I brought out my 40 amp hour LiFePO 4 battery that I've also put inside a case. And so this was my backup battery. In past events, I've found that I can run off about 20 amp hour battery if I have a 60 watt solar panel running during the day, and that usually gives me enough power to last the day of events. But this time I was operating this event alone, and so my setup time was very limited, so it was easier to bring out the bigger battery. And then when the internal battery ran low, I was able to easily switch over to my larger battery. So the second field test we did was at the solar eclipse that just recently happened across America. We ran an HF station for HF voice and then also JT65 or WhisperNet communications. And then we also had a laptop for that. And then I used this GoBox for local communications with other amateur radio operators. There were several clubs in the area that had members inside the county EOCs that could provide real-time traffic information. So this box was used at this event for intelligence gathering and information from other amateur radio operators in the area. Once everything is plugged into the box, it does almost turn into a little bit of a spaghetti mess, but everything is organized and right at hand what we needed. We were able to charge some cell phones off this, run an additional radio, and then one thing I found with this was I was not getting audio out of my A speaker. And normally with a box like this, you would have to tear half the box apart to get the radio out. But because my radio was on slide rails, I was able to slide it out, verify that the audio connection was good. I just had a different issue on my control head that wasn't allowing the audio to come through. As you can see, this is my nighttime setup. Those USB lights will come in very handy to be able to light up such things as laptops and the radios. Now at the top of the box, once again, I found it's very helpful. You can set radios on top of these boxes. That is my ICOM 2-meter radio. So I needed an extra radio for this event because I was monitoring a group out of Pocatello that was in an EOC that was running a 24-hour net. And then I also wanted to monitor the local intertie repeater. That's a repeater intertie that goes across Idaho down through Utah and into Nevada and Arizona. And then I also wanted to monitor the nationwide 5.2 simplex and also do APRS traffic. So technically, I think I probably would have needed 4 channels to run that. But what I did is once I beaconed my APRS location, since I was static, I knew that my beaconing would only happen every 60 minutes. So every once in a while, I would switch over to APRS and manually transmit my beacon and then move back to the 5.2 simplex. Since the Pocatello group was so far away from us, we were within line of sight, but many miles away. I ran the ICOM at full power with a Yagi antenna, and I still got a report of steamy but readable. So we definitely did need the extra power of that ICOM radio to punch through to that repeater. The other repeater was more local in Idaho Falls, and so we could reach that on the regular Kenwood dual bander. Here's a full picture of my table setup. I really do like these collapsible lifetime tables you can get at, say, Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club. I really like these tables because you can configure it into a very low operating position, a tabletop operating position, or a standing operating position. The HF station ran off the Bionopower 40 amp hour battery, and that was connected to a solar panel. So because we were running this for 3 days, once again, the internal 12 amp hour battery was not going to sustain us that long. But with solar panels connected, I would swap the solar panels between the radio box and the Bionopower box. And so between the two boxes and a solar charge controller and 60 watt panel, I was able to keep this operation running for 3 days. Not consistently, we'd turn them off at night. But that worked out pretty well. And also we were running some, as you can see here, some Goal Zero lights off that same battery pack. So this is my preferred setup when camping. Either I put it inside if I plan on operating overnight like I do field day. But if it's just around a campsite, I really like the idea of having the radios contained on a table in an operating area, and it keeps everything nice, neat, and organized. And then the canopy provides the protection we need in the shading. Overall, I am pleased with this setup. Like I mentioned before in the first episode, I have tried many different configurations with this radio in many different boxes and racks, trying to find the harmonious point where I could use this for what I use it for, which is event operations and monitoring of traffic while I'm in the field, say at a campsite, And so this setup with the radio in one box, the control head in the other, really works good for me. I appreciate the quick setup time that this has. With events, I'm usually rushed between the time that I get on site and that I need to be operating and that the first runners or comms need to happen. And so I appreciate having a quick setup, and also even much more, I appreciate having a faster takedown that helps me get the system taken down, put away, so I can be off-site. I believe I put enough additional components and items into this box that I haven't, across these two events, come across anything that I wish I would have had in the box. I do find that I am looking for some better solution when I have to run a second radio. It does work to set on top of the box. The 7200 does set nicely on top of this box, but the ICOM 2-meter radio sits on the box and kind of starts sliding around. So I believe that what I want to do next is work out a mounting solution on this box for additional radios. I commonly find that you do need to monitor almost up to 4 frequencies for events. Like this situation I did, if I didn't have to switch between APRS and National Simplex, that I would need to monitor 4 channels at the same time, plus HF. So I do find the need to create some type of system that will allow me to add additional radios in an elegant way to this box. And so I believe that's my next step in this process. And so even though this is the conclusion of this project, I will post an addendum to this video once I come across a solution of that. And also once I get a couple more events under my belt coming up this fall and winter, I'll post a recap further evaluating this box and any limitations or additional ideas that I come across. Thank you for watching this episode and this series. This is John, W7DBO with the Field Radio Podcast. If you're not aware of our podcast, you found this on YouTube, I run a bi-weekly podcast on the Ham Radio 360 network, highlighting amateur radio operations in the field. And please check us out at fieldradiopodcast.org. Thank you very much for watching. 73.